Hey everyone, good morning and thanks for joining me on today's webinar. So my topic for today is maintaining control of your IT infrastructure with WhatsUp Gold. So to introduce myself, my name is Greg Collins. I'm the product marketing manager for Progress's WhatsUp Gold. My job here is to inform you, the audience, on IT infrastructure monitoring and hopefully provide some valuable insights that help you maintain control of your IT infrastructure. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask. I do have my colleague Ekaterina Boniva, a senior sales engineer at WhatsUp Gold, on hand to answer any questions at the end of the session. So I'm going to start by going through the agenda here. The goal is to tell a story about how you go from manual or no monitoring to the best type of monitoring, which we call customized monitoring. I'm going to touch on some challenges systems admins face today, the monitoring solution hierarchy, and as I mentioned, finish off with a Q&A at the end. So we'll start by talking about the challenges that IT operators face today. To put it simply, it's difficult to keep track of everything. If you can't see it, you can't know its status. And if you don't have the right tools in place, you can't drill down to the root cause of the issue to be able to resolve it permanently and quickly. When you think about it, every network that is in production has so many moving parts, and things are constantly changing across the board. Within environments nowadays, there are patches, software updates, things are changing, they're getting blocked. There's so many different things to consider. All the time, new systems are being created in a virtual environment that you didn't know about. It's basically just constant change. And all of this is happening on top of the normal job responsibilities that someone has in the IT operations space. The problem here is that unfortunately, the expectations are for near 100% uptime while accounting for all these ongoing changes in the environment. And your environment is a dynamic growing entity, and the more complex it gets, the more likelihood you're going to experience issues with performance and the dreaded word of outages. So let's drill down into outages next. So let's talk about the impact of an outage. When it comes to outages and performance, to be honest, there's no solution that exists that covers every possible scenario. Outages occur for many different reasons, but we can all agree on the overall impact. If an application or service becomes unavailable, to put it simply, people can't work. This is one of the first things you'll hear about from an outage, is that employee productivity is reduced. They're going to be calling you, letting you know they can't access what they want. And as a result of this, there are serious implications. What's even worse, I would say, for the business is that there's a real danger and damage of reputation. Let's take, for example, an online store or payment processing system, something that's externally focused or something that could drive a negative customer experience if there was downtime. All of this can end up with damage to your reputation and revenue. Really, that's the business impact. It comes down to productivity and cost. You have to remember, customers hitting an unavailable service are much less likely to return ever again. We actually conducted some studies to figure out what does it cost the business. I think it's important to throw some numbers at it to give a good idea on this. But one study by EMA looked at the average cost per minute of an unplanned IT outage, and it came to almost $13,000. And for the largest enterprises, it can be as much as $25,000 per minute. I hope I'm getting the point across here that it's definitely not cheap. On the other hand, another study looked at a Fortune 500 companies, and it referenced a 47% loss of productivity due to a planned or unplanned outage, and then a 41% hit to brand equity and trust. So these are real and they are happening out there today. And as the title of this webinar says, maintaining control of your IT infrastructure is critical to any organization. So now that we've looked at the cost of outages, we're going to take a quick look at the different types of monitoring that people are doing nowadays. So we'll firstly look at the non-automated detection approach. We've encountered a lot of different customers in the past that were trying to do all of this manually. We've seen customers manually logging into systems, trying to write their own scripts, and spending an enormous amount of time trying to do it all themselves. And in theory, it is possible to take this approach. But as networks continue to scale and grow, new services get introduced, and the manual scripted-based approach that people take, it can become quite overwhelming. If you take, for an example, a small network of roughly 255 addresses, if you're trying to collect data from all those different systems, you would need to go to each IP address, spend, say, 10 to 15 minutes per IP address attempting to collect data, connect to protocols, And when you multiply that by 255, it quickly becomes unsustainable. We've seen customers in the past who created their own scripts for doing this and semi-automated the process. However, even that becomes unsustainable. At the end of the day, the scripts are written and maintained by someone, and then maybe that person leaves the company, and employee churn can halt the whole process, and you're basically left struggling to figure out, how do I maintain this going forward? So I suppose the overarching lesson here is that, yes, it is possible to do it this way, but it's just not recommended. Next up, I want to talk about discovery intelligence. Basically, what discovery intelligence is a system that can make decisions for you, but also take input based on what you know about your systems. So it's one thing to identify things automatically. It's another thing to identify things automatically and apply all the proper monitoring information along with it, customized to your specific environment. If you take the manual example I just gave, reaching out directly to each of those systems on your own, going through the protocols, you don't have to do that. There are systems out there that are intelligent and can do this for you, saving you time. And when I say intelligent, I mean directly out of the box, it knows what to do, but also being extensible. So it's not enough to have predefined rules within your solutions. These rules need to be customized. So really what it comes down to is that every network is different. There is no one size fits all for infrastructure monitoring. But important things like being able to schedule those discoveries or run them on demand, but get additional information, not just about monitoring, but asset information, service tags, all that type of stuff, as well as it being automated. Gone are the days of reaching out to those systems individually. A tool is now doing that job for you, thankfully. So with that being said, let's shift to the landscape and evolution of IT infrastructure monitoring. Now, looking at this in the context of the evolution of monitoring, I spoke already about the non-automated detection. The first thing in the evolution would be no monitoring. We have very simple networks, very easy to see if they were up or down or what was wrong. As networks got more complex, we came up with a non-automated detection using the manual way, based mostly on hindsight. Essentially, something happened and you were able to determine afterwards. But then as we move into the more complex systems of today, we get something that we were calling out-of-the-box monitoring. And that's where the automation kicks in. It provides context. It gives you deep insight into dependencies. It also helps you get to that root cause analysis and narrow down what you have to look at to actually solve issues. The next step would be to be able to customize that. You've got multi-service app support. You have environments like I spoke about earlier. There's so many changes and new things going on. Being able to adapt to that environment is critical, and to be able to automate the resolutions that you need so that the environment is being fixed proactively. Having said that, that's the area of discovery intelligence. If we think about the axis, then we're going from low context to high context, and from manual to automated. But we're also going from not doing anything through a reactive type of approach into a more proactive, and that's where everyone really wants to be. Next up, I'll talk about the discovery intelligence process itself. Really, it comes down to something initiates that scan to say, go look at my network, whether that be manual or schedule. And once that scan is running, it collects data from all those different systems and then returns those results. But not just that, it also makes decisions based on what information is returned in those results. And I would say this is an iterative process. This is not one and done. This is something that should be ongoing. I recommend scanning at least every 24 hours. You need to know if there are changes in your environment. And this is a big piece of that discovery intelligence and leveraging that to save yourself time. So let's move on to out-of-the-box monitoring. Now, what do I mean by out-of-the-box monitoring? Well, here we define this as monitoring capabilities that are built into the solution that you don't have to manually adjust. It's all there available upon installation, that's pre-programmed and that you can use. Basically, industry standard is coming down to availability and performance. You can see when we're talking about availability that it can be anything from a simple ICMP request or checking the status of a port on a switch, or even a hardware status, power failure, fan failures, all these things. Performance-wise, it really comes down to CPU, disk, memory, and interface utilization. Those are industry standards, and those should be expected in any solution that you adopt. They should be included out of the box. What the out-of-the-box monitoring discovers through its automation can be so much based on your network. There are limits if something has an IP address. But next up, I want to talk about the best practices of what you do monitor. What are the things on the network that out-of-the-box monitoring actually covers? Well, when it comes to network systems, routers, switches, firewalls, etc., basically anything providing network connectivity, you're going to want to look at that ICMP request, but also individual port status, interface utilization, so how much traffic is passing over those ports. But other things can cause outages too. Let's say a power supply fails. You want to replace that as soon as possible. Onto operating systems, really it's quite similar. We're reaching out to the device and making sure it's available, and then CPU, disk, and utilization monitoring. When it comes to cloud systems, really you're looking at, is it available from my location? That's the most important piece, is to make sure you're able to access the system from your remote location. And then moving on to servers or physical systems, baseboard management controllers. I'll talk about this a little bit since some might not be familiar. Really, this is a small system included with your server that is standalone. That lets you look at all the different aspects of the system. So each individual hardware component within the system, we should be monitoring the status of. And so for out-of-the-box monitoring, these are the things that it should be able to discover and monitor all of these different aspects of the different systems for you. So it's all actually pre-programmed and set up for you. I want to close out this section with lessons learned. Best practices aren't always about what you want to do, but also about what not to do. I've put together 6 common issues to avoid. So the first here is false positives. What these are is when you receive an alert, you go and check on the system and lo and behold, everything is available. This is important to note that this should tell you that you need to actually take action. You need to go customize your system to prevent these. Nobody wants to be woken up in the middle of the night by a system they didn't necessarily need to receive an alert from. If this ever happens to you, make sure to take some sort of action to correct it so it doesn't happen in the future. Next up is overly aggressive settings. They tie into these false positives that I just spoke about. Within every monitoring solution, there is some sort of cycle where it goes out and reaches out to those systems, and there's timeout and retry values associated with them. That's not one size fits all. A huge amount of customers need to adjust these to different settings to avoid these false positives. As I mentioned earlier on, every network is different. At the same time, I've seen a lot of people falling victim to keeping too much data. You have to ask yourself, do you really need 5 years worth of performance data on that system? The answer is most likely not. So you have to think about that because there's a cost associated with that and it can affect performance on the system as well. When it comes to alert storms, let's picture a switch with 50 servers connected to it and that switch goes completely offline. You don't want to get 51 alerts. You want to get that one alert from the switch where the root cause of the problem is. If you get too many alerts at the same time, it makes it very difficult to discover the root cause of the problem. From a non-critical monitoring perspective, not every system is the same in your environment. There's obviously very critical systems that need to be up 24/7, 365. When it comes to development and test systems, you don't want an alert at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to go and fix it. Those things can wait until the morning to be fixed typically. With that being said, it's really important to establish some levels of criticality between your systems so that you can separate your results, your alerts effectively. Another issue to avoid is tool sprawl. I read in a recent study that the average number of monitoring tools that an organization has is between 10 and 12, which is crazy. But if you think about it, okay, you got a cloud and that comes with its own monitoring system. And maybe one department has a system that they prefer, maybe a legacy system, and somebody else has something that they will have built. And it really all begins to add up. Really, too many tools, understanding, assessing, doing survey, and figuring out whether you can minimize the number so you can consolidate down to a lesser or somehow integrate them into a particular tool that you can use as a single pane of glass, basically a single source of truth. Being able to avoid that issue probably leads to my last point, which is communications breakdown. The more tools you have, the more teams that are doing different things and are not sharing the data. That's a direct result of that. Being able to alert stakeholders through automated means with some of these out-of-the-box tools is really critical. The final section I want to highlight is customized monitoring. So how does this differ from out-of-the-box monitoring? Well, if you remember the evolution, it's the last piece on that, because in this case, it's not only out of the box, it's not only automation, but it allows you to take new information you get through monitoring and make easy adjustments with that. Really, it's just extensibility of the system in general, not just monitoring. So monitors, servers, elements, whatever the vendor may be calling them. That is an important piece, being able to adapt to change. If something changes in the environment, you have to monitor something new. If an outage occurred and your system didn't tell you about it, you need to go and configure your system so it knows about this in the future. But it's also notifications and corrective actions and that discovery intelligence I mentioned. We're not talking about just monitoring. We're also talking about how people are notified. Can we automatically correct an issue, as well as that discovery intelligence? It's not enough for it to be static. It needs to be extensible. You need to be able to adjust the rules based on your requirements for your specific environment. So I'm going to go over some examples of what you can customize. First up is SSL certificates. We see this all the time. Even in the last few years, Google, Facebook, all the big players had some sort of outage related to certificates expiring. We have ways to monitor those and notify you when they're expiring so you don't get caught off guard. But there's also things like services and processes, Windows services, Linux, Unix processes. And you can see I put in the first one completely custom as well. So within our solution, you're not limited to just these base types of services, processes, SSL certificate. You can also have that option if you're not covered by one of those built-in types to completely customize it. So anything you can do with a script, you can monitor and automate. On the discovery intelligence piece, we're really talking about customizing those scan rules. So being able to say, okay, this is a switch based on information return. But what about new systems, new vendors? The system should be extensible so you can specify those new scan rules as well as adjust which monitors or attributes get associated with those systems. And the same goes for actions. I spoke about it a little bit, but it's mostly about the automated resolutions piece. So you get an alert that your system is down and it just needs a restart. You should be automating that. Don't waste your time on this any longer. Anytime you're receiving an alert, try and make sure you're looking at what are the corrective steps I took and whether or not you can automate it. The data display is just down to, well, everyone has their different preferences when it comes to how you display data, so you should be able to customize this as well. And then finally, on the automations piece, we're talking about integrations within inbound REST API. And I'm actually going to go into a little bit more detail on the inbound REST API. So what is an inbound REST API? It's a way to get or set data that it enables integration to existing business processes. So really, it's displaying monitoring data. And we get this request all the time. I want to show my monitoring data elsewhere. Well, that's what the inbound REST API makes possible. But also other things like maybe you want to start automatically monitoring things as soon as they're created, or maybe you want to grab data from another system like Active Directory, a CMVB, and update the monitoring system. Those are all possible with inbound REST API. Well, this takes me to the last section of the webinar here, I suppose bringing it all together, or just a summary of what I've spoken about. The first thing I want to bring up is I've already mentioned Progress WhatsUp Gold. I've shown you various dialogues throughout, spoke about all the features and the approach to discovery intelligence. These are all available within WhatsUp Gold. It's got a powerful combination of out-of-the-box functionality, intuitive workflows and systems integrations like I just spoke about. And so it lets you discover and maintain control of your IT infrastructure and while finding and fixing problems fast, whether that's on-prem, in the cloud, or in a hybrid setup. And there's this easy customization, which is, I suppose, the primary focus for the product. So in terms of end-to-end visibility, it offers a unique interactive mapping interface. You can see that in the bottom image here. It's all point and click. It allows you to drill down. It's color-coded to allow you to quickly, at a glance, see everything connected to your network, and whether that's servers, applications, or clouds. And it can even perform and optimize network traffic and perform log management. Finally, it's worth noting that WhatsUp Gold or any monitoring system that has the out-of-the-box and customized monitoring, it's going to help you prove the value of what you're doing, and that's important with any of our jobs, really. You want to be able to see what your network operations is capable of, and be able to share that with colleagues. I do want to give a sneak peek here, I suppose, at the WhatsUp Gold subscription offering. This is available in certain markets, and it's become a delight with a lot of our customers. So the subscription offering is basically what it is. It's a cost-effective means of accessing the software. There is now the ability to minimize the initial investment when purchasing WhatsUp Gold. You can choose from the 3 tiers we have on offer, which are Business, Enterprise, or Enterprise Plus. I've included some of the offerings on the screen here, but you can easily find out more details by contacting us directly. The subscription offering also guarantees you access to the most up-to-date version of the software. We currently run on a twice annual release cadence. You'll get continuous maintenance from our award-winning support team. And most importantly, it's built to scale with you as you grow. So if you're starting out with a lower number of devices, you can always switch tiers if necessary. How to learn more. So if you want to learn more about WhatsUp Gold, you can visit our website or download the free trial at whatsupgold.com/trial. We have an overview video or interactive demo that can also be found on whatsupgold.com/demo. And finally, I've listed out 5 takeaways here from this webinar. So first one I want to mention is it's important to just monitor more of your complex network by automating and customizing it. As I mentioned, doing things by hand or doing things manually, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and things are eventually going to slip through the cracks here. So the more you can automate and customize, the better, really. Point number 2 is realistically, no existing solution will cover every possible outage scenario. There's nothing on the market right now that offers that, but the right tool can have a dramatic impact and help you, I suppose, maintain control of your IT infrastructure. And number 3 is your business will benefit most by customizing for your specific use case. So as I mentioned, every environment is different. So no one size fits all. So you need to basically customize as much as possible for your specific use case. And number 4, use feedback to fine tune your processes to avoid common mistakes. Similar to the point above, what works for you might be completely irrelevant for somebody in a different industry. So it's just about using that feedback to make sure you're improving your processes as best as possible. And then number 5, a solution like WhatsUp Gold will employ discovery intelligence to provide end-to-end visibility for your hybrid network. So at WhatsUp Gold, we do have a great solution here that no doubt will be able to help you out within your network. So with that, that's the end of the webinar from my side. I'm going to pass it across now to my colleague, Katerina Boniva, who is the senior sales engineer, who will answer any questions anyone has. Katerina, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. So we have a couple of questions. I'm going to read them one by one, and we will answer them. So does WhatsUp Gold integrate with device 42 CMDB to populate devices to monitor, or can we can the API be used to do this? So direct integration we have with ServiceNow ticketing system and Opsgenie alert management. These are 2 ticketing systems which out of the box we integrate, and WhatsUp Gold can directly, in case of event, can open a ticket and populate the fields which are correspondent in the systems. And to that question, API can be totally used. We have a RESTful API documentation published. We can follow up with the link to that. If you need to do that type of integration, it's like when you type in RESTful API WhatsUp Gold, you can directly access it and see what are the calls and all the API documentation. And yes, totally, you can integrate with everything if it's achievable through API. Yes, WhatsUp Gold has RESTful API. So yes. Why this oversays SolarWinds? I really don't know if that's another question. I don't know how and if I understand correctly this question. So where and I'm going to answer in the way that I understand it. If you want, you can just type in a few sub questions, so that I can be sure that I am understanding you correctly and answering you correctly. But WhatsUp Gold is in a very competitive market, and out there are many good solutions. Us and other vendors like SolarWinds, like PRTG, and like many other systems. We are for sure a good competitor because we offer a flexible solution. WhatsUp Gold is a network monitoring solution. It's not just limited to some portion of the network, even if you have a hybrid situation, even if you have a cloud infrastructure, virtual Wi-Fi, wherever it's out there. We can monitor it. It offers enough automation so that you can build your network map after the discovery, and it puts all the linking, and you have a single pane of glass where you have visibility of the what are the working devices, what are the problems, where are the potential issues. You can troubleshoot directly from the same interface. You can back up the configurations. You can monitor your logs. You have the entire portion of notifications and alerts and integrations. So it's really a very competitive system, also in terms of functionality and pricing. So we can compete well with in that populated field, which is the monitoring solutions. Okay, I see you have typed in. So why would you use WhatsUp Gold rather than SolarWinds? Is there a specific thing you can do over other vendors? Okay. Uh, so why would you use WhatsUp Gold rather than SolarWind? And is there a specific thing? Yes, there are a few specific things, really, but the question is why. So it depends on your precise situation. So why would you use WhatsUp Gold rather than not only SolarWinds, but any other vendor solution? Because if you give us your use case, we will be flexible enough to give you the entire set of functionalities that you want and need for the best price. I think that this is something that we can and we do, and that's really what reassumes all the other answers that I can give you. But if you have an exact use case, and if you want to share it with us, I see that you are part of a university. So we have many universities as customers in different European countries. Usually what the use case for, not only for the universities, but there are big environments, so many devices, also access points and so on. We manage to provide a monitoring system that gives you flexibility. What I mean by flexibility, it's not just a marketing word. So we don't limit the number of sensors, and we don't quote the number of sensors that you are going to use per device. WhatsUp Gold is licensed per device. So that means that even if you have a dozens and hundreds of devices, or and today you are monitoring, let's say, a switch with 24 ports, and you want to monitor all the interfaces, but tomorrow you want to add additional parameters. You want to monitor services, or you decide that you want to add your VLANs and many more, whatever comes to the needs of a network. You can add those parameters without this to be something that will affect the licensing, because WhatsUp Gold is not limiting and is not quoting the interfaces, the monitors, the sensors, or whatever the different terms that any vendor uses, and it's licensed per device. Again, WhatsUp Gold gives you the flexibility to add and to have whatever the needs are. It's more flexible. where there are many big vendors that are also with good solutions, but they are less flexible than us in certain aspects. So we really can stand up and say, okay, for the use case for our customers, we manage to give all of the monitoring that they need on the best price. And okay, I'm going to answer the next one. I hope that this answers your question. Please, if you need more information and if you need more details and precise, and you have a use case and precise needs, we will follow up after the webinar, and we can get in more details also. So next one is, does WhatsUp Gold have the ability to show the different interfaces that connect the device? So the different interfaces on a device? Yes, totally. It has, and it does it automatically. WhatsUp Gold picks up one interface in order to create the network map, but then it discovers all the IP interfaces on a device, and it's an automated process from the right from the discovery. What type of devices are not supported? So WhatsUp Gold is a vendorless monitoring solution. Pretty much anything that has an IP address configured, we manage to discover and to monitor. So that's the really one of the huge advantages also, because even with older devices, WhatsUp Gold has a MIB library where you can upload a MIB file for the device, or specific devices that have difficulties with SNMP. You can use the MIB files. You can create object IDs, and still you can monitor those. It's also an agentless solution, so you can pretty much monitor anything. It's not just a marketing word that we say we are an infrastructure monitoring solution. You can have a hybrid network. You might want to monitor only the pure layer 2 network, like switching, routing part, or server part. You might want to add your applications. It's also possible to monitor the applications with WhatsUp Gold. You want to monitor configurations. You want to monitor logs, or precise part of your infrastructure. You want to analyze traffic, also possible. So it's a complete solution. What regions is the subscription offering open to? So currently, the UK and the DACH markets are the regions on which we are offering the subscription model, but we hope to open it for more this year. So stay tuned for more. And I think that the subscription model, it works, that you take a look after the webinar. You will receive as follow-up information and more details on that. Okay. I think that was all from the question side. So thank you all for the time and for being with us on this webinar, and hope to see you um, in the next one.